Dr. Nafi is an assistant professor at Concordia University in the Educational Technology program. And she's an expert in the influence of social media propaganda on social inclusion. And she is the recipient of the Governor General Gold Medal, Person and Society 2018. And my guess is this is based on your research on this topic. So Dr. Nafi's research addresses how hate, fear, and prejudice spread through social media. Her study carries important pedagogical implications to educators and parents concerned with the takeover of social media by hate speech proponents, namely the social media propaganda against the resettlement of Syrian refugees. And Dr. Nafi is here to address this topic and tell us more about her research. Thank you.
So, hi everyone, thank you for having me. This is a great pleasure for me to be part of this great event that you're having. Thank you also for the introduction. So, my research focuses on the integration of refugees, but on another, I'm looking at it from a different angle. So when many efforts are invested in helping refugees to be part of our society and give them all the resources and prepare them to change, I'm looking at the whole society and I'm asking the question, okay, so I'm ready to change, but are you ready to welcome me? Are you ready to accept me? Are you ready to stop looking at me as the other? So this is why I'm super happy that I'm following Hisham, because he introduced my topic. So integration and inclusion, we have to negotiate between the two parties, right? And they are interdependent. There are no integration if there is no inclusion. And when we ask a question such as, where is home? Home is where I feel that I belong. So even if you give me all the tools to be part of your environment and you're still not accepting me, I can't feel that I'm home. And what happened is that as of actually 9/11, when we started looking at and labeling Muslim and differently, but my research started really after the Paris attack. So we had the resettlement of refugees happening. We wanted to bring 25,000 refugees here in Canada. Paris happened, then Brussels, Nice, Cologne, so the sexual assaults in Cologne, Trump, of course, and other events that led to a global cyberbullying against refugees and Muslims. So what happened is that suddenly, right, maybe not suddenly, gradually, Syrian refugees became terrorists and rapists. And we had this labeling based on what was shared on social media. So despite the fact that in Cologne, the sexual assault that happened, where none of the 1,000 cases were actually from like any Syrian refugee who attacked the women there, but we had this labeling and refugees not welcomed was trending, the hashtag. What was happening in Europe, we were living it here in Canada, and what was happening offline and online was also interchangeable. So marches such as the group, the Pegida group in Canada, they were against, of course, the resettlement of refugees, cover up ladies, don't tempt Islamic rapists, and more. And I think most of us saw this post by Trump Jr. when he compared the refugees, and he said, if I had a bowl of Skittles and I told you just 3 would kill you, would you take a handful? So he was comparing the refugees, you know, like, and he's saying, okay, so maybe there are some of them who might be terrorists, so would you actually welcome them if there's a risk and we're threatening the safety of your family, etc. So even though many were super outraged by this post, he was able to plant the fear in the hearts and in the minds of those who were unsure, right? Here in Canada, we had in Quebec, Alexandre Bissonnette, who simply shot 6 Muslim men in a mosque because he felt that he was protecting his family. and Bissonnette was a fierce like follower of Trump and Le Pen. So killing Muslim is okay because Muslims will be a huge threat for us. What's happening on social media is not only the spread of hate speech, we're living in echo chambers. And we were talking about this morning about algorithm and how algorithm is controlling what we see. So we're super happy that we're actually receiving what we must look at, like videos watch and buy shoes or etc. But what social media is also giving us are ideas that would reinforce our position. So if we're with or supporting the arrival of refugees, then this is what we will be seeing. But if we're against it, we're being fed with more examples and more posts that would reinforce our fear and our resentment of these refugees. And we're living in these separate bubbles, and we're not even trying to get into the other bubble and see what the other is thinking. So what's the solution? Facebook, one of the social media platforms, said that they tried to come up with rules to take down hate speech, right? But this is not the solution because we need to flag, and there are so many issues happening. So despite the fact that they are proposing rules, those who are spreading hate speech, they are clever, right? So as much as we try to trick them, they are, their purpose and their goal is to, they have their political agenda, etc. So we have rules, they have a way around these rules. We talk about AI. Zuckerberg said that it won't even happen before 5 or 10 years for AI to start maybe detecting hate speech, but would it? Based on our discussion this morning, again, I believe that it was really not real, and after the discussion this morning, I believe even more that AI will not be the answer. So first of all, we have, despite the fact that we can teach the machine to detect words that look as hate speech, but we can't teach them how to interpret words. And our words are not simply words. We have so many interpretations, right? There's also, of course, we will be using AI, the others will be using AI too. So if we're fighting with AI, they will be fighting with AI. And you talked also about the videos this morning about the deep fake, I think. This is fake deep. So again, how would they detect? We saw the video with Obama, right? And his speech was changed. Twitter recently said that they also have their new rules to dehumanize language, dehumanizing language. But again, there are so many challenges to be able to do that. So stopping hate speech would be extremely difficult, but counterbalancing it isn't. So this is why we have to focus on, first of all, becoming much more louder to reach more people. So when we talk about the image of refugees, when we want to, there are so amazing stories that Hisham shared that they are not reached, people can't see them unless we go there and enter in their bubble and share these with them. We have to stop preaching just to the converted because, again, we're living in bubbles. So if we keep, preaching to the same people, we will not change minds or help. Break out of the echo chambers. Deprive hate speech from its power. And we absolutely need to reconstruct the image of refugees because social media and what was happening online, especially after terror attacks and sexual assaults, dehumanize refugees and describe them, as I said before, as terrorists and as rapists. So what I did, I interviewed youth. I was interested in the youth population because they are already online and they use these tools and they are expert in using these tools, but in different ways that were more work with their everyday life. So I asked them. I interviewed youth from Canada, from Europe, from UK, etc., from Lebanon. And what we went through is the following. I started by trying to understand with them their position in regards to the resettlement of refugees. But not only trying to identify their position, but trying to reflect on where this position is coming from. Is it because your parents, your peers, your group? So where is this? Are you really, like, do you really have this position, or are you simply mimicking others, or because of the influence of others? So they needed to really understand where the roots of their beliefs and their position. And after that, we went to analyzing their behavior online when they are faced with hate speech or etc. So they analyzed their behavior, and they also analyzed their behavior in regards to others, their friend, their network. How would the others are behaving, and how do they react to others' behavior? So we really went into analyzing the aspect of their online presence in the context of refugees and hate speech. Once they identified and understood the roots of their position, and then also identified the reasons behind their behavior, we started designing counterbalancing strategies to counterbalance the hate speech online. But each of these strategies were based on their skills, their capabilities online, what their normal behavior online. Designing strategies is not enough. So understanding my position, understanding my behavior, having strategies doesn't mean that I can actually act, because there are so many variables and so many issues online. So before going online, we had to prepare ourselves to see, why would I go and engage in any argumentation online without, of course, we discussed how when you want to get into this and discuss with the other, you should not go into a confrontational discussion, but you have to, like, find the arguments, start to understand the arguments of the other, so you can build other arguments to show the other perspective, and let others, present others with more in an informed way, and other perspectives, so they can have an informed opinion. What happened as I started my interviews with these youth, so I was planning to have interviews and to understand their position and etc. But there was this amazing transformation during our interview. I met each of them around 4 or 5 hours. They started by an unconscious filtering. So they were clicking, right, and going through the pages, but they never thought really or reflected on why they were clicking on whatever they were clicking, why they were looking at these very specific posts, etc. And then they started to explain their online behavior. It became much more conscious. They start with the fact that, I need to be more careful and there was this focus on self-interest. I need to protect myself. But as we were discussing, they realized that, being a passive bystander is actually helping these bullies online. Right? It's similar to any bullying situation. So by being a passive bystander, I'm contributing to all the hate speech against refugees. So I need to develop the sense, I have a social responsibility, and I need to be part of the movement. They believe that their voice was worthless because the others were super vocal, and then again after our discussion they realized that they had a capable and their voice became more empowered. They stopped labeling. So instead of saying, these groups are against refugees because they are racist, they started to question, ask the question, why are these groups against the resettlement of refugees? So if you understand the arguments of the others, we can get into a conversation. Instead of building walls between us, we can start building these bridge. And finally, they believed at the beginning that, if we went into welcoming centers and we were active offline, that was enough. And after we went through all the posts that were shared online, they realized that they had to be both offline and online. Thank you.
Sorry for my writing. So hi, I'm Daniel Salty from Toronto. Some of you know me. The note says, first of all, thank you. This is research that a lot of us have not even, hasn't even come to our minds at all. That for those of us who struggle with reputation of refugees, that is really a wall to help them kind of proceed and go on with life. You actually found another way to change that reputation altogether by just with a counter production, with a counter argument, sorry, a counter balance. That's the word. So my question was, with this awesome research and this awesome kind of new strategy, other than kind of showing that new strategy in, you know, settings like this, is there also maybe kind of a follow-up step to somehow have initiatives that kickstart it, that to get people in that conversation, in that mode of conversation?
So the thing is that, as I said, most of the research I've been exposed to or I've been looking at was really focusing on helping refugees, right? Like giving them tools, but not focusing on the social, on the host society. So very little was done to tackle this reputation thing. And what I did now is I took my model and I started working with CIGEP. Like CIGEP is like high school here, and spreading the word and publishing about it and really connecting with people who are ready to start this conversation about how we can change this image. The thing is that, and many ask me, why are you working on this topic, right? And I was like, do you know that we belong to a system? Like, we're part of a bigger system, and the crisis is bigger than us, and we need to tackle the problem from different perspectives. And the reputation of refugees is not only affecting the refugees, they are affecting my kids who are Lebanese, because the thing is that it's going, and this is what was happening online. It went from attacking refugees and labeling them to then spreading to Muslims, then going to immigrants, and then, so we need to be more active. So awareness, I think, should start within our schools. So when we talk about digital literacy and how we can raise awareness, so it's not only about raising awareness, but really talking about that. When I started talking about this in schools, many professors or teachers or instructors were worried about how can we, you know, like, this is a very sensitive topic. How can we discuss this in school? How can we discuss this with others, like the peers? We have the peer pressure. How can we discuss this with parents who are on the back of their, you know, kids? So it's very sensitive. And how can we create a safe environment where these discussions could happen, right? And we're working on that. So again, we don't have the answer yet, but this is the plan. We need to try to find ways to approach these sensitive issues, because if we don't start talking about them, it's ruining us all.